The morning sun filtered through the cracked blinds of Malik Thompson's small but cozy apartment, casting long golden streaks across his cluttered kitchen table. A coffee mug, half-filled and slightly chipped at the rim, rested beside a notebook filled with his sketches, his passion project. Malik, 29, lived a modest life in the heart of Chicago. He wasn't wealthy, nor was he famous, but he had a heart as wide as the Mississippi and a work ethic that made him the first to arrive and the last to leave. He worked as a logistics coordinator at a mid-sized supply chain firm, Carter and Burns Shipping Company, and though the work wasn't glamorous, it was stable. Or so he thought. Each day, Malik's routine was the same. Up at 6:30 a.m., 2 eggs and toast for breakfast, a quick jog down Lakeshore Drive, and then a 40-minute train ride to the firm's downtown office. His cubicle was nestled between Marcia, the gossipy HR assistant, and Leo, the chronically late tech guy who always forgot his keycard. Despite the dull repetition, Malik carried himself with quiet pride. He was diligent, respectful, and above all, loyal. His dream was never about staying in logistics forever. His real passion was architecture. He had studied it briefly in college before financial setbacks forced him to drop out and find work to support his family. Still, even while organizing shipping schedules and managing freight delays, Malik's mind often wandered to blueprints and skylines. His notebook, always kept in his shoulder bag, was a testament to that dream. During lunch breaks, he would flip it open and sketch building designs, imagining a future where he could walk into a firm as an architect, not as an assistant. He shared a tight bond with his younger sister, Kendra, who was in nursing school and counted on Malik for emotional and sometimes financial support. Their parents had passed in a car accident when Malik was 22, and since then, he had stepped up without complaint. To Kendra, Malik wasn't just a brother. He was the anchor that kept her grounded. Malik's boss, Jason Whitmore, was the kind of man who exuded authority but lacked empathy. Tall, with slick-back hair and a jawline made for magazine covers, Jason cared more about performance metrics than people. While Malik respected his position, he never felt seen by Jason. No matter how much Malik delivered, resolving shipment conflicts, handling overtime without extra pay, even covering for other staff, Jason remained distant, cold, and curt in his interactions. Still, Malik believed in playing the long game. Head down, do the work, and eventually it pays off, he would often tell himself. But lately, subtle cracks had begun forming in his predictable world. Last Thursday, Malik had been asked to work late again, nothing new. But this time, while sorting out a delayed shipment for a high-end client, he overheard Jason on a heated phone call behind his glass office door. "Yeah, I've got 1 or 2 we can cut dead weight, really. Loyalty isn't everything. Numbers talk." Malik had paused, fingers hovering over his keyboard. Could Jason have been talking about him? He shook it off, convincing himself he was overthinking. Then came the missing files. On Monday, Jason stormed out of his office, demanding to know who had misplaced a batch of critical documents related to a shipment for an international pharmaceutical client. Malik, who'd had no access to the file, watched in stunned silence as Jason barked orders and suspicion clouded his tone. "I need answers. If I find out who's responsible, there'll be consequences," Jason had warned, eyes grazing over Malik as if silently pointing a finger. Malik's stomach twisted with unease, but he said nothing. The next day, another strange thing happened. His keycard, which always worked like clockwork, wouldn't let him into the building. Security buzzed him in after confirming his ID manually. They said it was likely a system glitch, but Malik noticed the wary glance the guard gave him. It felt off, like his name was already being whispered behind closed doors. Even Marcia, who usually couldn't stop talking, went unusually quiet when he entered the break room that afternoon. And Leo? He looked down at his phone, avoiding eye contact entirely. Something was happening. Malik could feel it, but he didn't know what or why. That night, sitting on his worn-out couch, Malik opened his notebook and flipped through the pages. He landed on a sketch of a skyscraper, his favorite one. He called it the Phoenix. The name came from an old idea he had. Even when the world burns you down, you rise again, stronger and brighter. It was the kind of hope he clung to. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Watch your back. They're setting you up." His heart pounded. He reread the message 3 times, unsure whether it was a prank or something serious. There was no follow-up, no signature, just that cryptic warning. Suddenly, the world Malik had built, one based on discipline, routine, and loyalty, felt fragile. A sandcastle at the edge of the tide. Something was coming. He didn't know what yet, but his instincts told him that everything was about to change. And the strange part? Some small, hidden part of him welcomed it. Maybe this was the disruption he didn't ask for, but desperately needed. Still, as he stared at the message, unease tightened around his chest like a vice. For the first time in years, Malik didn't feel in control. And whatever was headed his way, it wouldn't be fair, but it would be defining. The next morning, Malik woke up with a knot in his stomach. The strange message from the previous night lingered in his mind like a shadow he couldn't shake off. He tried to focus on his routine, coffee, jog, train, but every step felt heavier, as if the world around him was subtly shifting. When he arrived at Carter and Burns, the office hummed with its usual buzz, but Malik sensed something had changed beneath the surface. Whispers floated in corners, glances darted away whenever he entered a room. The air felt thick with tension, but no one dared say anything to him directly. Malik tried to approach Marcia during his mid-morning break, hoping for some clarity, but she avoided eye contact and muttered something about busy schedules. Even Leo, usually so casual, was distant and curt. At his desk, Malik pulled up his emails, scanning for any sign of what might be going on. There was nothing official, no warnings, no strange memos, just the usual barrage of client requests and shipping updates. Yet, a gnawing sense of unease settled in. At noon, Malik received an unexpected call from Jason's assistant, Karen. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional, but cold. "Malik, can you come to Jason's office? He wants to see you right away." A chill ran down Malik's spine. Was this the confrontation he'd been dreading? His hands trembled slightly as he made his way to the glass office, where Jason sat behind an imposing mahogany desk. Jason looked up from his paperwork, eyes narrowed. "Sit down," he said abruptly. Malik obeyed, his heart pounding. "I'll get straight to the point," Jason began, voice hard. "There have been serious complaints about your performance lately. Missing deadlines, careless errors." Malik blinked, confused. "I don't understand. I've been meeting all targets and often staying late to fix issues." Jason smirked. "That's not what I'm hearing. And worse, we found evidence that some files went missing on your watch. That's unacceptable." Malik shook his head. "I never lost any files. You must have made a mistake." Jason leaned forward. "Mistake or not, the decision is final. You're terminated, effective immediately." Malik's world tilted. No warning, no chance to explain, just a cold dismissal. "But why? Can't we talk about this?" Malik pleaded. Jason stood abruptly. "The decision's made. Pack your things. Security will escort you out." Malik felt numb. The man he had respected, the boss he had gone above and beyond for, had just destroyed his career with a few words. As Malik gathered his belongings, he noticed Leo staring at him from his cubicle, eyes wide with a mixture of guilt and fear. Outside the office, security waited, their expressions unreadable. Malik walked out feeling humiliated, betrayed, and utterly lost. The building's revolving doors spun as he stepped into the harsh midday light. For the first time, Malik felt the sting of being utterly powerless. Back at home, Malik replayed the day in his mind, trying to find answers. Who had sent that warning message? Was this really about missing files, or was there something else? Over the next few days, Malik began his own investigation. He contacted former colleagues and reviewed every interaction he'd had recently. Slowly, a picture emerged. Someone was orchestrating this to push him out. He remembered overhearing Jason's phone call about cutting dead weight. Was Malik the dead weight to someone higher up? Then he found an anonymous note slipped under his apartment door. "Don't trust anyone in that office. They're setting you up." The mystery deepened. Malik felt surrounded by invisible enemies. As he dug deeper, Malik reached out to an old friend, Nina, who worked in IT security. She agreed to help him access company logs to see who had tampered with files or his keycard access. Together, they uncovered suspicious activity, multiple failed logins on Malik's system, and documents accessed by an unknown user shortly before the files went missing. The revelation was chilling. Someone was sabotaging Malik from within, and it was a betrayal from inside the company. Meanwhile, Malik's relationship with Kendra became strained. The stress made him withdrawn, and Kendra worried about his health and mental state. Malik felt caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Every ally seemed uncertain, every friend a potential foe. Despite the mounting pressure, Malik's resolve hardened. He would prove his innocence, not just for himself, but for the dream he refused to let die. The stakes had never been higher. Malik sat alone in his small apartment, the glow of his laptop screen casting shadows on the walls. The more he uncovered about the sabotage, the clearer it became. This was a deliberate attempt to ruin him.
But why?
Who stood to gain from his downfall? His mind raced through possibilities. Jason, his boss, was quick to fire him, but was Jason really the mastermind? Or was he just a pawn in a bigger game? Malik knew he needed to dig deeper, but time was running out. His savings were dwindling, and every rejection call from potential employers cut deeper. That evening, Malik met Nina at a quiet cafe. They spread out the data she had pulled from the company's systems: logs, timestamps, user IDs. A pattern emerged. The unknown user had been accessing sensitive files late at night, just before Malik's shifts ended. "This looks like someone with inside access," Nina said, sipping her coffee. "Someone who knows the system well." Malik frowned. "But who? And why target me?" Nina tapped on her tablet. "I cross-referenced the user IDs with employee records. There's one name that keeps popping up, but the account is under a contractor who was supposed to have left the company weeks ago." Malik's heart skipped. A ghost account.
Exactly.
Someone's using it to cover their tracks. They exchanged a look. Malik's suspicion grew into certainty. He was being set up by someone within the company who wanted to see him out, and fast. Determined, Malik decided it was time to confront the situation head-on. He couldn't sit back and watch his life unravel. He started drafting emails to former colleagues, requesting meetings to gather information discreetly. Every step forward felt like walking a tightrope. At the same time, Malik knew he needed to rebuild his reputation publicly. He began writing blog posts about workplace sabotage and corporate politics under a pseudonym, hoping to warn others without exposing himself. The response surprised him. Messages of support flooded in from strangers who had faced similar battles. But Malik's personal life bore the brunt of his fight. Kendra, once his rock, grew distant. Their conversations became strained, filled with misunderstandings and silent frustrations. Malik's obsession with the case left little room for their relationship. One night, after a particularly heated argument, Malik realized something crucial. He couldn't win this war alone. He needed allies, and more importantly, he needed to trust again. He reached out to Leo, the colleague who had looked so guilty when Malik was fired. Hesitantly, Leo agreed to meet. In a quiet park, Leo confessed, "I didn't want to get involved. There's a lot going on at Carter and Burns, things that aren't right. They're cutting costs and they want to blame someone. You just happen to be the easiest target." Malik felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but also relief. He wasn't imagining things. "Do you know who's behind this?" Malik asked. Leo shook his head. "Not exactly. But there are rumors about a new executive pushing for streamlining and people disappearing quietly." With this new lead, Malik's focus sharpened. He started connecting dots. The missing files, the ghost account, the sudden firing, all tied to a ruthless corporate shakeup. As Malik and Nina continued their investigation, they faced obstacles. One night, Malik's apartment was broken into, but nothing was stolen. Only his files were rifled through. The message was clear: stop digging or face consequences. Fear and determination battled within him. Malik's once quiet life was now a high-stakes game. Every decision felt heavier, every step riskier. He began compiling evidence, preparing for a possible legal battle or public exposure. But the question remained, would anyone believe him? Then came a breakthrough. Nina traced the contractor's ghost account to a remote IP address linked to a senior manager's home network. Malik's pulse quickened. If true, this was the proof he needed to expose the conspiracy. But now the stakes were terrifyingly clear. If he pushed too hard, he risked losing everything. If he backed down, he'd be silenced forever. Malik faced a crossroads. He could try to quietly find another job and forget the past, or he could fight back, risking reputation, relationships, and safety. His mind drifted back to the day he was fired, Jason's cold dismissal, the silence of his coworkers, the betrayal burning deep.
No,
Malik decided. He wouldn't let this be the end. With a new plan forming, Malik started reaching out to a whistleblower lawyer, preparing to take on the powerful forces aligned against him. The path ahead was dangerous and uncertain, but for the first time since the firing, Malik felt a surge of hope. His fight had only just begun. Malik's heart pounded as he stood outside the imposing glass building of Carter and Burns. The setting sun reflected off the windows like a burning warning. Today was the day. He was going to confront the people who had tried to ruin him. Inside, the tension was palpable. Malik had arranged a meeting with the company's board, armed with undeniable evidence. The ghost account, the suspicious late-night access logs, the messages threatening him, all meticulously compiled and verified by his whistleblower lawyer. The room was cold and sterile, a far cry from the warm memories Malik once held of his job. Jason sat at the head of the table, his smug expression replaced with unease as Malik entered. Other executives exchanged furtive glances. Malik took a deep breath. "I'm here to set the record straight. You fired me without cause, but I have proof that someone in this company sabotaged my work, and you ignored it." Jason sneered. "You're grasping at straws, Malik. This is your chance to admit you messed up." Malik's lawyer stepped forward, presenting the digital evidence and detailing the findings. The room grew silent, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, in a stunning twist, Leo, the colleague who had once been hesitant to speak, stood up. "I know who's behind this. It's the new executive, Mark Donovan. He wanted to cut costs and shift blame to save his own skin." Gasps filled the room. Donovan, sitting near the back, turned pale but tried to maintain composure. Malik pressed on. "Donovan used a ghost account to plant errors and sabotage my projects. When I confronted Jason, they chose to fire me instead of investigating." The board members exchanged heated whispers. Suddenly, Donovan's phone buzzed. An anonymous tip-off leaked the truth, exposing his manipulation and greed. Facing exposure, Donovan lashed out, accusing Malik of fabricating the whole story. But the evidence was overwhelming. In a moment charged with tension, the board voted to launch an internal investigation and reinstate Malik with full compensation. Yet Malik's triumph was bittersweet. Kendra had left him, worn down by the stress and distrust. His career was on the mend, but his personal life lay in ruins. As Malik left the building, the weight of victory and loss mingled inside him. He had fought for justice and won, but the scars would take longer to heal. Looking at the horizon, Malik vowed to rebuild not only his career but himself. This ordeal had tested his strength, revealing resilience he never knew he had. He was no longer the same man who had been blindsided and betrayed. He was someone who stood up against injustice, unafraid to face the storm. And though the path ahead was uncertain, Malik knew one thing for sure: he would never let anyone else control his fate again. In the days that followed the board's decision, Malik felt a cautious sense of relief wash over him. The official letter reinstating him arrived, complete with an apology and compensation for the wrongful termination. But the victory felt incomplete. His world had been shaken to its core, and things he once took for granted had changed forever. Malik returned to Carter and Burns, walking the familiar halls with new eyes. His coworkers' stares were a mix of sympathy, curiosity, and some lingering doubt. It was clear the workplace dynamic had shifted. Some whispered behind closed doors, while others approached with tentative respect. Though the professional setback was resolved, Malik grappled with the personal cost. Kendra had not returned his calls. Their relationship, strained by months of stress and suspicion, had crumbled. Malik felt a profound loneliness creeping in, one that no job reinstatement could fix. Determined not to be defined by his past hardships, Malik began setting new goals. He threw himself into work with renewed passion but tempered by wisdom. His experience had taught him to watch carefully, trust cautiously, and stand firm when injustice arose. Outside the office, Malik started attending support groups and workshops focused on workplace rights and mental health. Sharing his story with others who had faced similar betrayals gave him unexpected healing and strength. He realized his fight had a greater purpose: to inspire and empower others caught in toxic situations. The investigation into Donovan and the sabotage led to swift consequences. Donovan was terminated and faced legal action for fraud and corporate misconduct. Jason was reprimanded for his negligence and failure to protect employees. The company pledged reforms to improve transparency and protect workers from similar abuses. Through it all, Malik discovered new friendships and allies who respected his courage and integrity. Leo, once a hesitant informant, became a trusted friend and collaborator. Together, they advocated for positive changes in the company culture. As weeks turned into months, Malik rebuilt his life piece by piece. The scars of betrayal remained, but they no longer controlled him. He learned to forgive, not to excuse the wrongdoing, but to free himself from bitterness. One evening, as Malik sat by the window, reflecting on his journey, a message popped up on his phone. It was from Kendra. "I've been thinking a lot. I miss the person you were and the person you've become.
Can we talk?"
Malik smiled softly. The road to rebuilding trust would be long and uncertain, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. His ordeal had changed him, made him stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. He was no longer the man fired without warning. He was a survivor, a fighter, and above all, a man who refused to be broken. As Malik looked out at the city lights shimmering against the night sky, he felt a deep sense of peace. His story was far from over, but he had reclaimed control of his narrative. And this time, he knew exactly who held the pen.